Alrighty. Well, what we'll probably do, because I know we might be tight on time, because we might go quite deep on this, and we'll have it recorded as well for the rest of the group as well. But yeah, Richard, I'd love to kind of go a little deeper into what we've talked about already. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Richard, he's a fellow Ad Buyer Club member and also CEO of Unleashed CEO and
That
founder
one's
of the
always
company.
awkward to say. People are like, CEO of Unleashed CEO. And people are like, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to keep on repeating the word CEO and just see how many times I can get it into a sentence. That's probably the best way of doing it. Um, and so Richard's very, very skilled in helping companies build teams, build systems, and really show kind of CEOs how they can get back into that position of strength where they're playing to their best ability, and at the same time having a team that works very efficiently and really produces results. And I'm so excited to talk to you about this and go into some detail about this, Richard, as well. And at the same time, I want to kind of like see if we can put like an ad buying slant to this as well as we go, because I'm sure there's going to be so many questions that we'll have, and also maybe some other points that come up during this call as well. And I've noticed also that Anna is on the call, and I know that just as history from Viewability as our agency, we were running really well and things were strong, but I just know that the team was not running as smoothly as it could have been. And so Anna came in as COO, and I think there's quite a bit of shake up the day that, or probably the first few months that Anna came in, but for good reason. And now we have a team that's performing really well, and I owe a lot of that to Anna. So Anna on the call, thank you so much. And hopefully we can continue to grow and scale like we have been.
Our entire business model is predicated on the fact that amazing people like Anna exist. We just have to find them.
Yeah, exactly right.
So no, Anna's a baller. And Tom, thanks for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for everyone who showed. And my goal today, guys, is just to help share as much value from my experience, right? We've helped a lot of our clients place, all the way up from really high level marketing roles where the CEO is kind of fully able to trust the day-to-day of that to their more like CMO or CRO, and also much more tactical roles, right? Like media buyers, so across the spectrum. And honestly, your really awesome story and experience, Tom, I think we're going to be able to really lay out a roadmap that allows people to delegate something that I think is very sensitive, right? It's like when you're delegating something where if somebody turns one lever wrong, you can waste a lot of money or lose a lot of money, or lose a lot of lead flow. That's very sensitive, right? So this is an area a lot of CEOs really struggle to delegate. And I'm excited to maybe, get rid of some of that uncertainty today and map out a plan of how to do it the right way.
Perfect. Okay, great. Because just to give you some context, I think most people on the call will either be in a position where they're the company owner, and they have been doing the ads for their own business and getting very successful at it. It's starting to grow and scale, and they realize, hang on a second, I can't be doing everything here. I've got a business to run at the same time, and all of a sudden I'm doing things that are still very valuable for the company, but probably not my core skill. Mm-hmm. And how do I kind of transition out of that role and find someone who can take over? There'll be either people in that boat, or I believe there's probably a similar type of scenario where someone is either an ad buyer right now and things are starting to grow and they might have to start recruiting a new ad buyer to kind of help with the whole process. And who should they hire first, and what skills should they look for? And is it a role, or is it tasks, or is it, how do we structure that? There's so many questions that come up when you're in that position. I've been in both, I've been in both those scenarios. And I still don't feel like I've nailed it. That's why Anna's been so instrumental to the growth of the agency. And at the same time, I feel like we can still learn a lot. So yeah, I'm kind of going to pass over to you, and I'll have loads of questions, but maybe kind of give us some context or where you want to start, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Would love to. And I'll just say this: if you're in the second boat and you're trying to make your next media buyer hire, say that 3 times fast, media buyer hire, then you may feel like you got lucky, right? So, I've talked to a lot of people before. They're like, oh man, I have this great person in my marketing department. They're awesome. And it's like, how did you find them? And they're like, kind of happened by accident. And they're like, but I don't know if I'm going to get as lucky this next time. So whichever camp you're in, let's map out a path that doesn't just depend on luck, right? So that you guys can get these areas delegated. And so I guess, guys, just to kind of start off as, a little bit of context, right? My background is kind of in building teams, right? Specifically building leadership teams for kind of entrepreneurial, fast-growing organizations. And, but I've also been an entrepreneur my whole life too. So I know both sides of the equation. And really, guys, what I would like to kind of impart, and I think you guys are going to find it really valuable, is some proven principles around how to hire and delegate key areas of your business to people you can actually trust. And then we'll kind of, I think, contextualize that to media buying as we go. We'll add in little nuggets. And Tom, I'd really love for you to feel freedom to like chime in and go, hey, this was something we learned, specifically when it came to hiring, and training media buyers. Because I know people will find that additional insight really valuable. So hope you guys ready to dive in. Last thing, I know everybody on this call, most people are off video. We haven't seen your faces yet. 2 quick things. If you want to do me a favor and you're not in your pajamas, put your video on, because it's just going to make me feel like I'm talking to real people versus black screens. And then 2, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. So seriously, as we go throughout, Tom and I are going to do some Q&A. So stuff comes up, there's no dumb question. Just drop it in the chat, and we'd love to chat about it. Pun intended. So let's go, guys. So I'm just going to kind of share my screen real quick and just kind of lay out the roadmap for what I want to discuss with you guys today. So here we are. So I want to talk about how to attract A-player media buyers. So we're going to talk a little bit about hiring and training too, but I think for a lot of people, the core problem is like, how do I even find these people? How do I find the right people and get in front of them so that we can actually vet them? What's the process for that? And when I say A player, allow me to define that for you. Okay. A player is someone who you can trust to do the job without you needing to micromanage them. Okay. Now, an A player needs to be paired with good systems and good training. But at the core, right, it's somebody who is intrinsically motivated to do everything in their power to succeed at their role, right? Intrinsically motivated to do everything in their power to succeed at their role. And that's very, very important, right? Because a lot of the conversation around hiring and building teams is very tactical in nature. It's like, how do we kind of, get more candidates, fill the funnel, attract people with the right comp structure, bonus days, paid time off. And we get a lot of these tactical questions from clients, and they're not bad ones, right? But they're definitely not the first things you need to be thinking about when it comes to attracting people you can actually trust, who are intrinsically motivated to care for delicate areas of your business the way you would, right? The way you would. Those things aren't going to be the drivers in that. And so what I would say here, guys, is the 3 things I want to talk to you guys about today when it comes to attracting A players, period, and specifically media buyers, is these 3 things. Number 1, I want to talk about weaponizing identity and vision. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second. Then we're going to talk about having a scalable team structure. Okay, a scalable team structure. This is really key, so you don't end up sharing a seat with someone you hire. Anybody ever done that? Right? You're like, oh, they kind of do part of it, but then I just do part of it. We just sort of juggle, we just sort of pass the ball back and forth all the time, right? Scalable team structure is the issue there. And then lastly, a success profile. We're going to talk about how to make sure we hire the right person, and then actually how to ensure that that person is actually performing up to the standard that we set. Okay. So those 3 things are going to lay out the roadmap for today. So let's start with number 1, weaponizing identity and vision. Okay. First things first. This is the foundation for hiring a team of A players, period. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I know who trip up on this and forget that as an entrepreneurial company, you have a lot of things stacked against you. Okay. You're not that structured. You probably can't pay as much as the next guy, right? You don't have the prestige. You might not have the health benefits. You might not have, like, you guys know what I'm saying? You have a lot of things actually stacked against you. But what entrepreneurs forget is that you have a lot going for you. And so what I see happen in a lot of entrepreneurial companies is entrepreneurs don't leverage the things they actually have going for them. And because they don't actually have the things that the other big corporate companies don't have, they do not attract A players. They get B players. They get kind of not even necessarily the bottom of the barrel, but they get people who we're looking for a job for a reason. I'll just put it that way. Okay. So this is very, very common. We see this happen all the time. So how do you leverage what you have going for you as an entrepreneurial company? And it starts with team identity and vision. Okay. As an entrepreneurial company, the number one thing we've discovered that people who are intrinsically motivated to grow and contribute are looking for is a culture that they resonate with, an identity that basically people want to go, I want to work with my people, my kind of people, and I want to work with them towards contributing towards a vision that matters. Okay. And if you cannot chart the course for someone of what that is, and they can't sniff out whether you're their kind of people and that vision is something they want to be a part of, they won't even pay any attention to you. And it's so funny to me how when we fix this in clients' businesses, how they start getting all of these qualified people that just start getting attracted to them that like they were not getting before. And they were like, holy smokes, like, wow, this person came out of the woodwork and wow, and it's like, it's because we fixed this at a foundational level. We actually started leveraging your strengths as an entrepreneurial company by weaponizing your identity and vision. When you do this right, when you craft this with care, your team identity, this is who you are, and we'll get into this in a second, and your team vision, it has the power to actually pierce the hearts of other people and make them want to work with you. It also has the ability to repel the wrong kind of people from ever wanting to join your organization, right? Anybody ever hired just like a flat out loser before? Somebody who was like looking to like coast as much as possible and like kind of get by and like doesn't really care about anyone but them, like a total lone wolf. Heck, they might even just be trying to like cheat somebody out of some free money. Okay. You want your vision to be a weapon that scares those people away. Okay. Where they look at your culture and they look at your vision and they go, there is no room for me to coast by here. Right? Like that is not actually going to happen. And so I'm out. Like I'm going to go look for some, corporate infrastructure where I can kind of hide and get paid, the max I can for the minimum amount of work. Okay. Just get that right up front and you're going to find your hiring process is so much more efficient. So how do we do this? Well, it really comes down to three things, guys. And this is an exercise we take clients through and really get clear on before we ever go to market to hire, right? Which is getting their team identity and team vision really, really clear. Okay. So team identity is the combination of core values combined with cultural habits. This is very important because one without the other is incomplete. You need to tell people what you value, and then you need to tell them how you measure it, right? What actual habit and action can they do daily or weekly that embodies that value? Okay. So in a media buying context, for example, right? I've talked to a lot of people who they go, this person just doesn't care about my marketing the way I do. And I really make them, kind of pinned to the wall. Like, what does caring for your marketing look like the way you do? What does that actually look like? And they're like, every email gets spell checked, or like something simple, like, hey, we don't exceed KPIs ever, right? We set KPIs and we don't exceed them. right? And so then when you have a core value, like we're performance oriented, these like really core, kind of like things that can be very cliche, right? You could be like, oh, we're high performance culture or excellence or, whatever. Typically I tell people to gravitate away from kind of eye roll stuff anyways. But when you pair that value with an actual habit that actually defines success, or at least embodies a part of what that value means to you, it's amazing how clear people get on what's actually expected within your culture, right? And then success compounds here. So what's so cool is you can start to create a culture where you celebrate and an old mentor of mine used to say, what gets celebrated gets repeated. So if you actually take the time to get clear about what is right, you want to catch people in the act of doing something right and then celebrate it, which will actually build a neural pathway in their brain that says, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. And suddenly you have a whole team of people firing on a set of cultural habits that are actually what drive successful outcomes for you. Right? So,
can I ask you a question real quick, Richard, on that?
Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
So like, if you clearly define if you bring up your slides again, just so I can see the exact wording, because I'll miss it otherwise. But if you were to be hiring someone and you're looking through and you're saying, right, we've clearly defined our values and our habits, and we know what those are as a company, and you're going through the hiring process to find someone, are you looking to find someone who has this shared with you already? So if you're in the interview process and you think you're talking to somebody and you think, right, actually, hang on a second, they really share this and they embody this value and this habit already, because they have proof in their kind of a CV or the resume that they can do that? Or are you saying that when you're talking to someone, they could be transformed into that person? So they might have kind of been in the wrong role previously. They don't have that experience, but they're like, it just completely resonates with them. And how do you check for that as well? Or how do you kind of know if that person is right, or they're just saying it when you're speaking to them?
It's a really, really great point. So a couple things on that. So one, just to reframe the question a little bit, I think what you're asking is really, once you put this stuff on paper, how do you know when you're interviewing someone whether or not they actually fit your culture or will do those habits, right? Like how do you actually determine that? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think a couple things. So one is, first of all, calibrate your questions in your initial interview pre-screening to check for these values, right? So even simple questions like, what are some of your values? What do you care about? I'm trying to even think about, I could pull up some examples of some interview templates and things we do, but in all of our pre-screening interviews, typically we're looking at more skill level fit and role level fit, but we're also testing a bit for culture. And at every stage in our interview process, almost to the point of ad nauseum, our team is talking about our culture. We're talking about our vision. Like, it's not just like one tactic. It's literally infused through everything we do. It's in the job posting. It's in the application. It's in the follow-up info that's sent to them. It's in the first interview. It's in the second interview. It's so embedded in the process that by the time we actually get on a call, right? Like I get on a call with them as CEO, or a high level of my leadership team does, and we pull up this team IV. We already pretty much know where they're at, but we're going to even do that as a final test. We're going to literally run through this and cast vision to them and talk about this culture and people's body language. We train our team to watch for body language as we're doing that. So literally, it doesn't mean somebody has to be like, charismatic or energetic, but you'll be able to tell based on their body language and their response, whether there's actual like resonance. They'll tell you. Or we just did an interview with a guy this morning who we literally rejected specifically because of this. I reviewed the tapes. My team sent me the tapes. They're like, hey, I want your opinion on this interview. I watched it for 5 minutes and I went to the point in the interview where my team member was walking them through the team IV. And I went, nope. That was it. I mean, it was really that simple, right? Because we've gotten to this training point. It's like, nope, we're going back into the pipeline. Because it was so clear that the person we were looking at, yes, he had some of the skill set fits and some of the metric fits, but based on conversations our team had had and the way he responded to that, he would not have been intrinsically motivated to actually be that person and advance towards that vision. We would be pushing that. And we don't ever want to be pushing that. We want the person to be pushing themselves in that direction.
Got it.
Did that
Really
answer your
clear.
question,
Thank
Tom?
you. Definitely, yeah. That, because I was kind of going to pull it back to the idea of like, are you checking? You're kind of using this as a marker to say if they can if they demonstrate through their language and everything about who they are, they're kind of showing they're intrinsically motivated and aligned with your habits and your values. If they have that, then it's like, okay, cool, that's a big tick in the box. Obviously, there's going to be some other core skills that will be wanted to be ticked there, but you're looking for that intrinsic motivation, not the sort of thing where it says like, oh, you say you could do that, but there's no evidence of that. This might just be a bit more of a difficult push here it's not a slam dunk, so to speak, to say someone's going to really fit this culture.
Here's what I would say. Typically, we don't want to train values, but we can develop people, right? So even within our culture, like we have a rating system. So we have 5 core values. Somebody can be a question mark on one of them. That's okay. We can train that. We can develop that. We call it the bar, literally. But if somebody's off on 2, it's a big red flag. It's kind of like, okay. Okay, we have multiple kind of red flags here where like this person doesn't really demonstrate that throughout the process. And the thing I'll say on this, guys, is like in an entrepreneurial company, this process feels overwhelming to a lot of business owners who are used to just hiring whoever's available. But remember, like if you have an assistant, if you have one other team member, you can delegate some of the steps in this process. You just need to be involved. This is the part as a CEO where you need to define that team identity and vision and then use it as the filtering and guiding mechanism for who you bring into your organization, period. And if so, like, I love you, friend, but like you are not doing your job as the CEO of your company if you're not doing this.
Yep. This is amazing. Carry on. This is great.
All right, guys. Sweet. So Team IV, just so you know, I have all of this linked in a doc. Tom, I don't know what the best way to share this is, but I'm going to give you guys my notes for free. And it has linked copies that you can make copies of some of these templates if you guys want. That's just my gift to viewability and all you guys. So
it's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yep. So if we don't cover everything or we cover it fast, you'll have some access to that. So, if you guys want, maybe what you guys can do is like just comment on like the post Tom made or whatever. If you guys want me to send that to you, and then I'll send it to you guys. So
I can add it to the recording as well. So the recording for this, I'll put the link underneath. That'd be great.
Sounds good. All right. And then, okay. So number 1, weaponizing identity and vision. Team identity, team vision, team goals. Start there. Any questions on that, guys? Drop it in the chat. We'll do some Q&A. I'm going to move a lot faster on these next 2 because that's the one that I kind of have to harp on because it's the one that people skip the most often.
Feel free to unmute as well, guys, if you've got questions. Just fire away.
Fire away. I see people taking notes, so maybe the questions will come in Q&A later.
Let's carry on, and then if there's more questions that come up, we'll kind of head back to where we were or something.
I love it. Great. So next, guys, let's talk about scalable team structure. So this is designed to solve the inevitable problem in an entrepreneurial organization of sharing a seat, like I said earlier, where it's kind of like, hey, you hire someone and you sort of know what they need to do and you sort of know where they fit into your team, but you sort of, because it's a sensitive area of the business, you just sort of end up like doing half the job for them. And then they do kind of half the job. In this scenario, neither you or them are empowered. And that's a problem. Okay. So what we need to do is before we make any hire who we want to be an A player who's self-managing and able to meet and exceed our expectations is understand the context around their role. So where do they actually fit into your team structure? Who's their manager? Who do they report to? Who do they go to when they have problems? And most entrepreneurs just go, well, that's naturally me. And the question is, should it be? Right? Should it be? Sometimes, but you need to answer that question. Is there a meeting structure in place? Like, what metrics and KPIs are they responsible to hit within that area of the business? So this is where we've got to put in place an actual structure for the team so that we put the person into a container where they can actually win, right? And the biggest thing here, guys, that I see people miss is like, sometimes I even watch clients who hire great people, but because they don't have the right vehicle to plug into, they can't win the race, right? So in any NASCAR race, I'm not a NASCAR fan, but you ask the question, is it the driver or the vehicle that wins the race? And the answer is both, of course, right? Both. So you need to have both, the right driver and the right vehicle. Okay. So talking about the right vehicle for a little bit, I'm probably going to like condense 2 and 3 into one note, because I know we're running a bit late on time and I want to have plenty of time for Q&A. So talking about this, guys, for a second, in most organizations, there's really only 3 essential functions. And most entrepreneurs who've never been through like, an MBA or whatever, they're kind of like, hey, I built my business and I like hired a bunch of people and then they just kind of all report to me. It's like, okay, that works to a certain level, but at some point you need to actually start to put some structure around how your company and how your team functions, right? Anna Williams over there is like, amen. Yes. So in every company, guys, there's really 3 essential functions. Okay. There's sales and marketing, which is how we sell the product or the service, how we attract the right people into our sales process, and then ultimately sell them on the product or service, right? That's sales and marketing. Then we have operations. Operations is how we make the product or deliver the service and make sure the customer is satisfied and or a raving fan, right? And then we have finance and admin, who manages the money going in and the money going out to make sure that there's profit on the bottom line and that the company is protected from all forms of liability, getting sued, the IRS, taxes, all the admin and logistics that goes on with making sure you have a good corporate structure and a profitable company that's protected, right? So sales and marketing, operations, finance, and admin. So for media buying specifically, guys, I would really make sure that you understand, right, that depending on your business model, sales and marketing are more connected than you probably think. And there needs to be somebody in your organization who takes lead on that, right? Who is sales and marketing head. Now, in many cases, this is one of the last positions a CEO should delegate in their company. It really is. It's probably the one you're most uniquely suited for, but you may need to put some structure around yourself to help you actually sit in that leadership and management seat. So you may need an assistant. You may need, a sales coordinator, depending on if you have a sales team, right? All of that said, when you're looking to actually bring a media buyer kind of under this marketing box here, right? The key things to be thinking about is like, so let's say we define the role here, right? The key things you need to be thinking about is, who does that person report to? Okay. How and who does this person, who do they need to meet with? Okay. I know we live in a Slack obsessed culture where the answer to everything is a Slack channel, but you know what? Sometimes nothing beats a good old meeting. Okay. Where you actually have a consistent rhythm where you get together with the right people, you review the appropriate numbers and data, you exchange the appropriate level of information, and you solve the relevant issues that you guys are having collaboratively. Okay. So, somebody like a media buyer, it's so easy for that person to get off on an island. You do not want that person on an island because they will make mistakes. They need to understand what else is going on within the business. So just make sure you understand, where does this person fit into the structure and what's the meeting cadence to keep that person and the rest of the team all on the same page. An old mentor of mine used to call this keeping the circles connected, making sure that this person's world and the rest of your team that they need to be, that those circles overlap, that there's connection. All right.
And so if you're to be a let's say, because I think we've got a few people on the call that are agency owners, or they are, they'll be kind of doing the marketing and advertising for a company. In that scenario where you're kind of an outside company, but fulfilling that role for them, you're media buying for that company, and you probably will have a person to report into. Is there a strategic relationship you should try and develop, and are there kind of what, being an outsider from the company and you're not an in-house media buyer for some companies, how would you make sure that that relationship is really strong, or what things would you say need to be in place that may not be obvious?
Can you reframe the question again for me?
Yeah, I do a good job of rambling through questions. So
I do too. It's okay.
So that role that you just mentioned there was like a media buyer, I presume, within a company. So it's going to be reporting into the marketing team or the sales team as well.
Yep.
If you're not an in-house media buyer and you're the media buyer and you run your own agency and you're being hired, so you're kind of fulfilling that role for that other company, it may not be as seamless because you might not be there in the company, like able to do those meetings quite so often or talk to them. It's a lot of it's just passed off to you. So the relationship is different. Is there something that we should be aware of there, or is there? I'm just thinking about that relationship and what should be done to make sure that runs as smoothly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a bit of an enigma, Tom. You and I by the way, I love agencies and the impact they do in the world, but agency world is an interesting one. And Tom, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this. So the optics on this are very different for me based on whether I'm talking about what I find is typically best for the company that's hiring the outsourced third-party agency versus what's best for the agency working for the client. So the optics are very different in those two different relationships. So let me say this. Maybe what I'll do, Tom, is I'll speak to the first one because that's probably my area of expertise, and I'll let you speak to the second one. Okay. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the second one. So in my opinion, like high level contracted positions should align with your structure, not the other way around. That's my opinion. So, and that's not going to be a fit for everyone, but like, if I am going to work with a third party, I've got to make sure that relationship can align with our structure and our systems, not break them, and not be off on an island somewhere where it's not, the circles aren't connected. So for me, I would make sure that before I build one of those relationships, or as I'm building those relationships, that there is same page expectations around when do we meet, who do we need in that meeting, how does reporting happen of metrics, how does reporting happen from a metric standpoint, how do the intangibles flow in a meeting cadence between the two, and how do we actually walk out of a meeting on the same page about who's doing what by when, which I think is a struggle in a lot of third-party marketing relationships, right? Where there's just sometimes not a lot of structure around that. And there's a lot of unmet expectations and frustration, right? But yeah, I'll let you speak to the second one because it's more your area of expertise. What would you say on the other side of the equation?
Well, I was thinking about that as you were talking there, because I know that we have slightly different relationships with each client that we work with, because as you say, like they'll have different expectations and different demands, so to speak. But also we tend to always find we're actually quite aligned because we're being hired for a performance-based deal. So we're paid for performance. We're not spending the client's money. So I think that we're in a bit more of a unique scenario where we are, we've agreed what that financial deal needs to look like. And then our circles touch because we obviously need to get paid and we need to make sure we're delivering on what we're saying we're doing. But I don't think it would be as involved if you're like a full stack marketing agency that's doing everything for a client. We're just doing one isolated thing. So I think it's difficult for us to comment upon that with experience, because we're just very good at communicating with our clients in a way that's probably very different to most advertising agencies.
I think in an interesting way, Tom, your model is really you guys own and build a marketing system in YouTube, and then really I don't mean this to sound derogatory. I actually think it's brilliant, right? But I think what you guys are doing is you're basically like, you've made your business model so simple where you're just literally selling like results, So it's just, it's at that point, what people do with whatever the result they ask for you is when it becomes internal. But otherwise, like what you guys are doing is actually an external on purpose. It's not that it's not collaborative, but it is external on purpose. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's the best model I've seen out there for that.
That's that whole reason for the question. I was just fishing for the compliment. Thank you so much.
That's right. There it is. Tom is the genius, is the conclusion of that one.
I'll stop interrupting you. I'll let you carry on.
No, man, you're asking great questions. Does anybody else have any questions on team structure while we're on that? No? All right, moving on then, guys. So last piece of today, guys, is I want to talk to you guys about success profiles. So this is really where like the rubber meets the road. By the way, we didn't get to talk about like the actual hiring process today. We talked about a lot of the foundational things, but just so you guys know, I've included in here a copy of our A-player hiring workflow. That's just like a gift to you guys. So just so you know, it's pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of pieces that are delegatable. I think you guys will find it's really, really helpful and insightful. I will say this, most people radically underestimate how much filtering and sifting the best really do before they hire someone. Most entrepreneurs are just way too quick start on this. And the old adage, hire slow, fire fast, is very, very true. Very, very true. So just take that under advisement as you look at this 16-step workflow. And some of you guys are going to be like, holy crap, we do like 3 of these things, It's like, well, I'm trying to advise you guys on like what the best do, right? What people do to get like true A players. So something to think about. All right. So lastly, guys,
just on that, sorry to interrupt. One thing that I know, a friend of mine, Alex Hormozy, works with his wife, Layla Hormozy, and she put out a post recently, and she'll say that she interviews at a minimum 20 people before she hires a new role. And she says half the reason for that is because she'll understand more about what people can do, and also kind of getting a more of a kind of cadence of what's possible with people, but also understanding what the role really needs to be. So it's that was an interesting perspective, I think, just to go through that process of learning, especially if it's a new type of hire or a new type of role within the company, just to kind of go through that process. So by the end of that, you're kind of very well educated about what this role really is, which I thought was quite interesting.
Well, and the fact that it is so labor intensive is like literally why our business exists. So we have an in-house recruiting team where we work with clients on the vision and strategy pieces of this, but then we actually go do all the heavy lifting, right? Because a lot of CEOs are just like, dude, I can't do like 20 interviews. And that's just like 21st interviews sometimes, right? And then like there's follow-up and there's, things like that. But the key thing to understand, guys, is like, if you actually understand that hiring is the greatest investment in your business, the most important investment that can be either the greatest accelerator of your growth or the greatest waste of time and money you'll ever experience in business, then you've got to have a great system and process for this. And you need to do it right. Like you need to do it the right way. This isn't something you want to half-ass. Pardon my French. That being said, there are ways to hack the process and get really, really efficient. So like, unlike Layla, like I don't interview 20 people, but we filter and screen sometimes between 100 to 200 candidates for one role. And then we interview by team interviews, probably about 20 of them, which makes it to the next layer of our organization, who probably interview maybe 7 of them. And then I probably interview like 3 of them. Right. So there are, and you guys will find this in that process, there are ways to train hiring as a skill within your organization, even for people who aren't as competent at you, and just have your hands involved where it is truly essential. And some of that comes down to getting the foundational stuff we've talked about already, like right up front. which is a great segue into the success profile. So basically, guys, the last thing I want to kind of note on this is like getting really clear before you go to market to hire, not just on the team structure, but on the specific role that you need. Okay. Like, who do you actually need? And I've seen a lot of job posts. Everybody thinks like, oh, I posted a job on Indeed. Like, we're clear. Not usually. Like, the job post is an ad, guys. It's meant to catch people's attention. It's not a true success profile. And before you ever go post an ad, you need a true profile of like, who do you really need in this role? So let me walk you guys through how we think about this. So obviously you have position, title, work schedule. What's your vision for the position? This is really important. Most people don't do this, but like, envision for a moment, like, what does this person contribute to your team? How do they make an impact? This is more important than most people realize. And then what's the A player profile? So what does an absolute A player in this role look like? Describe that for me. Describe what someone who is absolutely crushing it in this role looks like day in and day out. Then we have the team culture, right? Their top 5 responsibilities, right? You just need to get clear on what the big ones are. What measurables are they responsible to hit? What KPIs, measurables, successful outcomes are they actually responsible to hit? And then what skills and qualities are you looking for from this person? And then lastly, we obviously have salary, benefits, perks, all that, this stuff. But that really comes last, right? And then really, guys, what's so neat about the success profile is we actually, in our interview processes, we have people self-assess themselves on a scale of 1 to 3, where they fall on each one of these items. So 3 is like, that's totally me. I'm totally confident I can do that. 2 is like, I'm partly confident. I think I can. Maybe I can. And 1 is like, I don't think I can. Like, how cool is that? That we're actually giving people the opportunity to like be open and honest and upfront. What's also neat about this is you can usually sniff out a lie on this stuff because somebody's tonality will betray it. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a 3. I'm definitely a 3. They'll talk themselves to death trying to convince you on why they're a 3. And then you're like, the more you talk, the less I believe you. So like this just gives you like a really good sniff test. And then also internally after interviews, we have our team rate 1 to 3 as well. And we see where that stacks up with the candidate's own perception of themselves. Okay. Now this is where we get into some deep ninja stuff. So somebody doesn't have to be perfect to be hired, but going into hiring, guess what? We already have a development plan laid out for this person based on where they rated themselves a 2. Right? Do you guys see that? So we going into the onboarding and training process, where are we going to focus? All right. We focus on the 2s. So it just gives you like a ton of visibility. And then guess what? Guess what tool we use to do their 30-day review as an employee? And then their next 30-day review. And then from there, we do 90-day reviews of their performance. Back to the success profile. Hey man, last 30 days. How do you feel like you did? We have them self-assess and self-evaluate. And then we evaluate and we give them our objective feedback on these things. This gives you so many opportunities to have great coaching conversations with these people, right? 30 days in where you can catch stuff before it bites you in the butt way later on, right? Many a great hire has been saved just by having a 30-day performance review where you're able to call out some of the 2s or maybe even some of the 1s. Right? And get those things back on track before they turn into big issues. So do you guys kind of see the power of this, like this approach? And I guess I'll just turn it back over to you guys because I've already talked enough on what questions you guys have on that.
This is really, really good, buddy. This is really insightful. I love the way of like having this planned out, because then like if you do tend to hire them and they do have a bunch of 2s in there, then it really makes you feel comfortable that the day they start, you can map out what that journey looks like for them for the first 30 days and ongoing from there. That's really clever.